Ning Hua looked at the person in front of him and started to take him seriously. He stepped forward while still emitting the brilliant divine light of the great path from his body. Ning Hua looked at the person in front of him and started to take him seriously. He stepped forward while still emitting the brilliant divine light of the great path from his body. He was curious to see who on earth this person was. The mysterious man remained self-possessed when seeing Ning Hua was charging at him. He formed a seal with his hands. In an instant, the great path resonated in the space, and the divine light shone brightly. A divine wall towering into the sky took shape with him at the center and blocked Ning Hua's path forward. The divine wall slanted and pressed down from above with unstoppable momentum and the authority of heaven. Exquisite and intricate patterns were engraved on the divine wall and outlined several formations of the great path. The formations glowed with the divine light and seemed invincible. The mysterious person looked like the god of earth at this moment. Upon seeing the divine wall that obstructed his way, Ning Hua released the divine halo that swept across thousands of miles of land. He outstretched a hand and pushed forward. The divine light of the seals climbed up on the divine wall, trying to seal it off. Nevertheless, the divine wall kept extending into the distance as if it could reach as far as the person's divine consciousness could cover. It was impregnable and indestructible. What kind of defense is this? Chen Yi and Yi Futian behind him were also astonished by the power. The mysterious person stood on top of the ancient peak, and even the mountain was rooted out and became a part of the great path. The divine wall he summoned divided the area into two by chopping up in the middle. Yi Futian and Chen Yi couldn't see what was going on outside, but they felt that the wall was like an unshakable barrier made by God. Bang! With a loud thump, the divine wall vibrated violently as though it was attacked by a fierce force at multiple places. Under the sustained and relentless attack, the divine wall shone even more brightly and refused to yield. The mysterious cultivator gazed at Ning Hua while giving off unparalleled divine light from his body. A separate divine wall appeared in the sky and began to fall upon Ning Hua. In the meantime, the divine wall in all directions started to move toward Ning Hua, and if it was trying to close him in. Buzz! Ning Hua was aware of the danger and drew back immediately. He stopped his attack and pulled out through the energy field that hadn't been consolidated yet. He was afraid of not being able to get out if he was confined within the divine walls. Who on earth are you? Ning Hua stared at the mysterious person who seemed to have integrated himself with the great path and blended into the world. His body was embedded in the divine wall as though he was part of it. Based on his observation, Ning Hua vaguely felt that the person was not only at a higher cultivation level but also had a deeper comprehension of the great path. By integrating himself with the great path, he truly reached the perfect state and created a resonance and unleashed the incomparable power of the great path that even Ning Hua's attack couldn't penetrate. Please go back, Vice Chief. The person spoke calmly and didn't answer Ning Hua's question. Ning Hua was still radiating dazzling divine light and wouldn't let it go. He came to hunt down Yi Futian and Chen Yi. With his prestige and reputation, how could he explain himself if he went back empty-handed? The mysterious cultivator noticed Ning Hua's hesitation and formed a seal with both hands. Tremendous force fell from the sky at once, coupled with strong resonance. An enormous hand appeared and pressed down upon Ning Hua with all speed. It looked like the God hand. Bang! With a deafening sound, Ning Hua was nailed to the ground. A giant indentation in the shape of a hand became visible on the ground. Ning Hua slowly surfaced with an embarrassed look. His frosty eyes glared at his opponent. He didn't expect to be overpowered by anyone in the Donghua domain, except for the master cultivators. In his mind, even Jiang Yueli, who was at the 8th Order, probably couldn't defeat him either. Who was this person? An 8th Order Renhuang with a perfect great path. Which top force in the Donghua domain could have someone like this? Jiang Yueli of the Divine Palace of Fluttering Snow was the only one known to the public. We'll see each other again soon, said Ning Hua. He turned around and left with resolution. He seemed to understand that he would not be able to breach the person's defense to capture Yi Futian and Chen Yi. He wasn't even a match for him in a face-to-face clash. The mysterious person gazed at Ning Hua's receding figure for a while. Moments after Ning Hua was out of their sight, he asked, Vice Chief, what else can I help you with? I know who you are, a voice came from afar. Ning Hua left for real after that. The mysterious person withdrew his power, turned around, and looked at Chen Yi and Yi Futian. Thank you very much, Senior. Chen Yi and Yi Futian expressed their gratitude. The Donghua heavens are not safe. Come with me, the mysterious person said. Then he led Chen Yi and Yi Futian away. A lot of people came to the site after they were gone. Their hearts trembled when they saw the deep indentation on the ground, which was still emitting frightening will of the great path. Some people even stepped in and sat down to cultivate themselves. For cultivators of the younger generation, this was a mark of the great path left by a true legend. It was the vice chief who was defeated here? Someone asked. Yes, I think it's him. Who on earth has such terrifying power that can beat the vice chief? The crowd was confounded and amazed. Wasn't Ning Hua the finest genius in the Donghua domain who was unrivaled and second only to the master cultivators? Who could prevail over him? Nonetheless, they had no clue since even Ning Hua himself couldn't figure it out. On the other side, almost half of the palatial domain chief's manor was destructed and burned down. The battle over there was finished already. Emperor Yan and Ling Yunzi, the palace lord of the Lingshao Palace, were both injured. Their distressed expression undercut their usual ethereal quality. Even the chief was a little disheveled. He descended from above with a displeased look. The energy around his body undulated slightly. Chief. Emperor Yan and Ling Yunzi also had a stern face. They already knew what happened. The Millet Emperor was still alive and got away. The divine stela truly is a divine item from the distant past and can borrow the authority of heaven. The Millet Emperor escaped, albeit being seriously injured. I have to trouble you two to spend some effort to track him down and capture him, to keep him from murdering innocent people, said Ning Yuan. Emperor Yan and Ling Yunzi nodded. We will track his whereabouts once we get back. Emperor Yan nodded in agreement. They needed to fetch their divine items to trace the Millet Emperor. Although the Millet Emperor was severely wounded, he could still pose a huge threat to them once he recovered. They had to exterminate him completely, just like how they handled the supreme deity Donglai. Ning Yuan raised his head and saw that the people who chased after cultivators from Wangshan Watchtower were coming back. Chief. The elder bowed and was about to report the news when Ning Yuan waved his hand and said, I already knew. You did the right thing. Even though the Millet Emperor broke the rules, the disciples of Wangshan Watchtower are mostly innocent. As long as we capture Yi Futian, it's all right to let other people go. I'm sure they will know how to behave in the future. Yes. Everyone nodded. Ning Yuan gazed into the distance. Shortly after, he frowned and spoke to Ning Hua thousands of miles away. Ning Hua, where are you? Ning Hua was still on his way back when he heard his father's voice. He replied, Someone intercepted me and took Yi Futian and Chen Yi. Ning Hua's voice traveled through the void and echoed in the domain chief's manor. All the cultivators were stunned upon hearing him. Who could intercept Ning Hua? Who is it? Ning Yuan asked. I don't know. He deliberately concealed his face. Besides, he is an 8th order Renhuang with a perfect great path. He can forge a divine wall that can screen off the void. Ning Hua answered, I couldn't penetrate his defense. Everyone in the domain chief's manor was staggered. Who had such abilities? Even Ning Hua couldn't break his defense? Who could it be? They escaped. Ning Yuan's expression grew grim. Yi Futian stole the treasure in the demon god temple in the secret zone and ran off. How could they let him get away? He looked around the room and scrutinized everyone present, then asked, Does anyone know which force has such a person? They had never heard of this man before. I don't know. Everyone shook their heads. Both Yi Futian and the Millet Emperor escaped. It seemed like the domain chief's manor failed to achieve their goal this time. Even so, it was a pity that Zhong Chan died. Zhong Chan was already a 7th order Renhuang who would have had a boundless future. Yet he died in Ning Hua's hands. Maybe he is from another domain? Someone suggested. Perhaps he was trying to mislead us by covering his face, someone else said. Ning Yuan's face was steely. He looked into the distance and said to Ning Hua, Come back first. We'll talk about it later. Who was hindering them in secret? Could it be someone sent by one of the master cultivators here in the Donghua Palace right now? Besides them, who else could raise such a powerful cultivator? Were they after the treasure of the demon god temple? Regardless, Ning Yuan had to send someone to investigate since he couldn't find out the truth by speculation alone. I have been a bad host for letting the Donghua banquet turn into such a mess. I will invite you to gather again in the future if the chance arises, said Ning Yuan. The crowd was silent. No one expected the Donghua banquet to become a storm like this. Furthermore, the storm was probably not over yet. I won't keep you any longer. Please suit yourselves. However, I will send people to inquire into the matter. Please forgive me if the investigation affects you later, said Ning Yuan. The crowd was surprised and confounded. Did Ning Yuan mean that he would investigate all the forces? The Lingxiao Palace will cooperate fully, Ling Yunzi said. The Great Yen will cooperate with the chief as well, said Emperor Yen. Nevertheless, other master cultivators didn't express their attitudes right away. Proud and esteemed, they wouldn't give their approval before knowing exactly how Ning Yuan wanted to conduct the investigation. I will bid you goodbye, chief, the sword goddess spoke and left. Other people also made their departure following her. The turmoil seemed to have come to an end for the time being. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 2075, Familiar Place. Chapter 2075, Familiar Place. No one imagined that the Donghua banquet, which had shaken the Donghua domain, would end in such a fashion. If it weren't for the incidents that occurred after, Yi Futian and Chen Yi would have become prominent figures in the Donghua domain. They would have unlimited glory, and the Wangshan Watchtower would also be basking in the sun. However, the name of Wangshan Watchtower was eventually eliminated by the chief from the Donghua domain. Yi Futian and the Millet Emperor were being hunted down. The domain chief's manor issued warrants for their arrests. In that battle, many Renhuangs perished. Among them were many famous figures such as Thousand Arms Sword Emperor. He had fallen to Chen Yi. Many people witnessed how powerful Chen Yi truly was in that battle. Of course, there was also Yi Futian. He actually possessed the will of the emperor. After a few days, news came from Domain Chief's manor that Yi Lionian was not his real name. Rumor had it that Domain Chief's manor investigated and found out that Yi Lionian was actually Yi Futian. He was from the original realm, an ancient world that most people in the Divine Prefecture were unfamiliar with. Rumor has it that the members of the top forces of other domains had been the ones who discovered this. Yi Futian was from the original realm and had made many enemies there. He was extremely famous in the original realm. He had entered the god's relic before and had obtained the will of the emperor from there. He was a monstrous existence who had a major fateful encounter. Only then did the world know why Yi Futian was so powerful. It turned out that his origins were extraordinary. He was more than just a mere cultivator of Eastern Deity Island. Aside from that, many people were curious about another person. It was the cultivator who had taken Yi Futian from the hands of Vice Chief Ning Hua. The cultivator had a flawless 8th-tier great path and had not revealed his power before in the Donghua domain. No one in the domain knew about such an existence. Who was he? Where had Yi Futian been brought to now? On a continent far from the Donghua heavens, on an island in the vast ocean region, a beam of flowing light shot across the sky and landed on the island. Two of these figures were Yi Futian and Chen Yi. The other person was an ordinary-looking middle-aged man. He appeared very ordinary. From his appearance, no one could possibly imagine that this person had a flawless great path that was at the peak of the 8th tier. His combat ability was astounding, and he was the strongest person below the giant-level figures. Even Ning Hua had been pushed back by him. Yi Futian looked around at their surroundings. He glanced around at the familiar island. He felt his heart stir when he figured out who had helped him. You should know by now, the middle-aged man said as he smiled at Yi Futian. I received orders from my master to cut off Ning Hua. Fortunately, I made it in time. After that, I brought you back here. Many thanks, senior, Yi Futian said as he bowed slightly. If it were just him and Chen Yi, they would not have necessarily been able to escape Ning Hua's pursuit. The other party had no intention of giving up. There is no need. You should be thanking my master instead, the middle-aged man said with a smile. It was nothing. There is no need to thank me. Two silhouettes emerged from the courtyard ahead. Both were people Yi Futian recognized. When he saw the two of them emerge, Yi Futian bowed and greeted, Emperor Shi, Senior Sky Lord. The person who had helped him was Emperor Shi, who was also the master of the middle-aged man. Yi Futian had heard before that Emperor Shi had not taken any disciples. It appeared that the rumors were false. Emperor Shi had taken in a disciple. It was just that he had not made it public. The disciple had cultivated on Turtle Deity Island all this while and had never made an appearance. Hence, no one knew of him. Emperor Shi nodded his head slightly. He introduced Yi Futian, saying, This is my disciple, Yang Wuqi. He rarely ventures outside. Hence, he does not know many people. I am sure the people outside also do not know who he is. Yi Futian nodded his head slightly. From the looks of it, Yang Wuqi was Emperor Shi's secret disciple. I witnessed everything that occurred during the Donghua banquet this time. Some things were not your fault. You also have extraordinary talent and should not perish just like that. Hence, I ordered Wuqi to head over. Fortunately, he held off Ninghua, continued Emperor Shi as he looked at Yi Futian. It was a shame that he could not make it there sooner. Zhong Chan's death was a pity. When Yi Futian heard Emperor Shi mention Zhong Chan, he also felt sad. Zhong Chan's talent was exceptional, and his great path was flawless. However, his death felt so wrong. All of this was because of the chief. However, Emperor Shi did not say any more about this. After all, the fact that it involved the domain chief's manor made it more complicated. It was already very difficult for Emperor Shi to have helped them. If word of this got out, he would offend 3 superpowers. Even though Emperor Shi's cultivation was high, it would still pose a risk to him. Yi Futian bowed as he said, For me to be able to escape, no matter what, I must thank Emperor Shi and Senior Yang for your help. Although my cultivation is low, if there is an opportunity in the future and Senior has any request at all, no matter where I am, I will certainly rush over to fulfill it. I have already said that you do not need to thank me. For me, this is nothing. Even if the chief finds out, he cannot do anything to me, Emperor Shi said calmly. The chief will certainly report the incidents during the Donghua banquet to the Imperial Palace. Before this, it was Eastern Deity Island. Now it is the Wangshan Watchtower. If there are any more disturbances in the Donghua domain, the Imperial Palace most likely will have questions. Of course, Emperor Shi helped out because he had broken through to the next plane. He had already prepared himself. When he faced the second stage of his divine tribulation, he might perish. Hence, he did as he pleased now and did not have any qualms about doing so. Currently, Emperor Shi might not have imagined that he had benefited himself by helping Yi Futian this time. Yi Futian also did not say any more. He understood what Emperor Shi meant. At the end of the day, the chief was the person charged to oversee the Donghua domain. If the Donghua domain were turned upside down, he would not come out unscathed. Moreover, the will of Donghuang the Great was for martial arts to prosper. However, Ning Yuan had dealt with Eastern Deity Island and then the Wangshan Watchtower, stirring up trouble. If he caused any more trouble, he would most likely draw the attention of Donghuang the Great. Emperor Shi continued, Domain Chief's Manor has already issued warrants for your capture in the Donghua domain. They are investigating the various forces. They might even send people to search the top forces. It is safer here on Turtle Deity Island. Unless Ning Yuan comes in person, no one else would dare search here. Both of you may cultivate here for some time. Once the commotion has died down, you can make plans for later. All right, replied Yi Futian as he gladly accepted Emperor Shi's offer. Although the Donghua domain was very big, they would still be in danger if they went outside. Once the commotion died down, the chances of Domain Chief's Manor finding him would be lower. Of course, the precursor to that was that Yi Futian did not draw attention to himself. Emperor Shi nodded slightly and said, I have already ordered people to monitor the island. No one is to approach this area. On the island, you can walk around freely and cultivate as you please. You do not need to feel hindered. Although Emperor Shi rescued Yi Futian from the clutches of the Domain Chief's Manor, he did not seem to be concerned about having done so. His ability was powerful, so he had a certain level of confidence. His will could also cover the entire Turtle Deity Island in a single sweep. He naturally had absolute control over the island. Who would dare betray him? This place was a world ruled by Emperor Shi. Yi Futian nodded his head. Emperor Shi smiled and turned to leave. Thunder-punishing Skylord gave Yi Futian a look as he smiled and said, "Focus on cultivating. You do not need to worry about other things. Improving your ability is everything now." Yi Futian understood Thunder-punishing Skylord's meaning. He was telling Yi Futian not to be anxious about seeking revenge. He could only improve his ability for now. Although they did not discuss much how this storm had started, they all knew that the domain chief's manor intended to deal with Wangshan Watchtower. Yi Futian had been forced to kill while he was being pursued. His crime was completely unwarranted and was merely an excuse. The Wangshan Watchtower suffered heavy casualties this time. Zhong Chan was killed, and Yi Futian was constantly being pursued. It was natural for him to hate Domain Chief's manor to his bones. He would make sure to pay them back. Emperor Shi and Thunder-punishing Skylord turned to leave. They acted so casually, as though they had done something not worth mentioning. Yi Liuyan is my alias. My real name is Yi Futian. I am from the original realm, Yi Futian said to the two silhouettes. He had declared his real name because he did not want to face Emperor Shi and Thunder-punishing Skylord with a fake identity. This storm had also grown so large. He had even been forced to unleash the will of the Emperor. Many people would certainly notice this, including those from other realms. He could no longer keep his identity hidden. The other forces would soon know that he was still alive and come to the Divine Prefecture. Emperor Shi and Thunder-punishing Skylord stopped in their tracks. They then smiled and continued walking. They did not seem to mind who Yi Futian was or where he came from. They helped Yi Futian purely because they wanted to help him. That was all. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. In a region in the Donghua domain, a group of people was traversing across the sky. The leader was Goddess Donglai. They were rushing towards Eastern Deity Island. In a region in the Donghua domain, a group of people was traversing across the sky. The leader was Goddess Donglai. They were rushing towards Eastern Deity Island. We most likely will not be able to stay on Eastern Deity Island for long, Alchemy Emperor said next to Goddess Donglai. Goddess Donglai nodded her head and said, "After we get back, we'd better prepare to evacuate Eastern Deity Island and find another place to settle down." The Alchemy Emperor did not say anything. He looked far behind them. Not long ago, they had parted ways with Li Changxing. He had decided to return to Wangshan Watchtower. Alchemy Emperor was somewhat worried. Li Changxing would probably never return. However, Li Changxing had insisted on doing so. They could not do anything about it. This was the principle that he held on to. Xia Qingyuan retrieved the Zimu Yuanyang mirror and was conversing with Yi Futian over transmitted thoughts. After knowing where Yi Futian was based, she was much more relieved. Now, in the entire Donghua domain, the only person who could truly protect Yi Futian was most likely Emperor Shi. Coincidentally, Emperor Shi had helped him out. That way, even if it was discovered, Emperor Shi had the ability to go against the chief of the Donghua domain. At that moment, on an ancient peak on Turtle Deity Island, Yi Futian sat there quietly. After hearing that Li Changxing had returned to Wangshan Watchtower on his own, he felt a pang of sadness. Older brother Li usually joked around casually, but he was truly a man who took brotherhood seriously. Otherwise, why would he return to Wangshan Watchtower at a time like this? Currently, Wangshan Watchtower was the most dangerous place for him. Li Changxing was surely aware of this. Ning Yuan had personally declared that the name of Wangshan Watchtower would be eliminated. That meant that the Wangshan Watchtower did not exist anymore. Why did he return to Wangshan Watchtower now? In the Dongxiao continent, at Wangshan Watchtower. At Wangshan Watchtower, there were many cultivators from all around the Dongxiao continent, especially from the main cities of the Dongxiao continent. After the Renhuangs of the various forces caught wind of the news of the downfall of Wangshan Watchtower, they came here to pillage and loot. This even resulted in a huge battle. Many of the ancient palaces of Wangshan Watchtower had collapsed and were destroyed. It was as though this place was an ancient ruin and not a holy land for cultivating. At that moment, below Wangshan Watchtower, a silhouette stepped onto the stairs leading up to the tower. This person was an elder, and he carried a corpse with him. He instantly drew the attention of many people. Up above, some people looked down at the person who had arrived. They could not help but narrow their gazes. It was Li Changxing. The corpse was that of Zhong Chan. Li Changxing actually dared to return to Wangshan Watchtower. Was he seeking his own death? The other cultivators had heard about the battle during the Donghua banquet. The Millet Emperor was severely injured, and he escaped from the Donghua heavens. After that, Emperor Yan personally led an army over here to track down the Millet Emperor. The news shook the entire Dongxiao continent. Rumor has it that most of the members of Wangshan Watchtower had perished or were injured. Zhong Chan had been killed and the name of Wangshan Watchtower had been eliminated by the chief. It no longer existed. Hence, the members of the various forces threw coal on the fire and came to Wangshan Watchtower to pillage and loot. Now, Li Changxing had actually returned. For the other cultivators, this was tantamount to suicide. However, those who saw Li Changxing dashed away. They were still very cautious of him. After all, they took advantage of the situation, and Li Changxing was the top disciple of Wangshan Watchtower. Bang! With a loud explosion, the stone step beneath Li Changxing's feet split apart. He looked up into the sky above. His cloudy eyes were now filled with a cold look. The once glorious and prosperous holy land of the Dongxiao continent was now in such a state. Everywhere was left in ruins, and it had fallen into dilapidation. Let's go! A Renhuang dashed away. When the Renhuang saw Li Changxing shatter the stone step beneath his feet, he could faintly sense a suppressed rage coming from Li Changxing. At that moment, Li Changxing was emanating a cold, majestic aura. He even emanated murderous intent. This caused the Renhuang to feel very uneasy, especially since Li Changxing had carried a corpse back with him. However, the Renhuang had just stepped into the air when countless branches and vines swept towards his figure and entangled him. Flames of the Wei radiated from the Renhuang's figure as he attempted to burn off the vines. Yet, frightening halos of the great path flowed over the vines and the leaves. The flames could not touch them. Swoosh! Swoosh! The vines embedded themselves in the Renhuang's body, causing him to scream in pain. His entire person was buried within the vines, and he was gradually suffocating. His person could no longer be seen. Very soon, the vines were dyed red with blood. With a rustling sound, the vines turned to dust, and blood poured down like rain. The Renhuang had perished and no longer existed. This caused the expressions of the Renhuangs on the Wangshan Watchtower to change drastically. Many of them frantically prepared to leave. However, Li Changxing took a step forward and flew into the air. His figure shot straight up into the sky above Wangshan Watchtower. At the same time, his will enveloped the space far into the distance, forming a terrifying domain of the Great Path. The vines of the ancient tree blocked out the sun, enveloping this part of the sky and the vast space within it. The expressions of many Renhuangs changed. They looked up above Wangshan Watchtower. Right now, Li Changxing stood high in the air. Vines swept out from his figure and covered the sky. Everyone could sense murderous intent filling the air. At that moment, Li Changxing seemed to have completely changed. He was different from before and was no longer the Li Changxing whom many of the cultivators of the Dongxiao continent knew. But, in the vast space, countless branches rustled as they descended upon the Renhuangs. An extremely sharp aura suddenly emanated from the branches. It was as though they contained sword will. Tui! 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 The next moment, sounds could be heard, followed by many screams. The branches that filled the sky pierced through many Renhuangs. Fresh blood rained down from the sky. The sky above Wangshan Watchtower was dyed crimson. In a flash, countless Renhuangs were killed. Senior, I only came here to admire Wangshan Watchtower. I have no other intentions, some people said in terror. Seniorly, we are members from Alchemy Divine Palace. We only came here to take a look, other voices cried out. They were all desperate pleas. Alas, Li Changxing did not seem to hear them. Endless divine halos enveloped this space. The branches were like indestructible blades, killing them off silently. Right now, Li Changxing had become a god of death. During the Donghua banquet, the Wangshan Watchtower had faced a huge crisis and was hunted down by 3 major forces. More than half their force was dead or injured. Zhong Chan had died in battle, and the Millet Emperor escaped with heavy injuries. Now that Li Changxing had returned to Wangshan Watchtower, the cultivators of the Dongxiao continent were actually rampaging around here. One could imagine how Li Changxing felt upon seeing this. As for the excuses given by the cultivators, he ignored them. Came to admire the tower? Came to take a look? Couldn't they do so from afar? If Wangshan Watchtower had not suffered such a catastrophe, would any one of them have dared to step into Wangshan Watchtower so presumptuously? They stood on Wangshan Watchtower. Hence, that meant that they believed that Wangshan Watchtower had fallen and no longer recognized its existence. Hence, Li Changxing showed no mercy. Rumble. Just then, an intense rumble came from afar. On one side, flames of the way burned away the branches. A sage-like figure charged into Li Changxing's domain. The figure had a cold and indifferent expression. It was the Palace Lord of Alchemy Divine Palace. He stared at Li Changxing. In a cold tone, he said, "Li Changxing, you are presumptuous." Li Changxing swept a glance at the other party. From another direction, Yan Hanxing and the great Yan ancient royal family cultivators appeared, along with members of some of the top forces of the Dongxiao continent. From the looks of it, they had already discussed how they would divide up the Wangshan Watchtower. The chief has already ordered the removal of the name of Wangshan Watchtower from the Donghua domain. Li Changxing, the chief showed mercy and spared your life. However, you went on a killing spree and frenziedly slaughtered the cultivators of the Dongxiao continent. Since you have done so, we will eliminate you, Yan Hanxing said in a cold tone. He had been waiting here all this while. The moment Li Changxing returned, he would certainly die. Li Changxing shouldn't have returned. Li Changxing glanced at the other party. He did not say anything. His figure descended upon the highest region of Wangshan Watchtower. He walked up to a place that had sunk in. This was where the Divine Watchtower initially stood. The Divine Watchtower was taken away by the Millet Emperor, leaving behind a deep pit. Li Changxing placed Zhong Chan's corpse within the pit. He said, "Younger brother, you comprehended the way here. Rest in peace here as well." As he said this, he sat down beside the corpse. In an instant, a divine tree appeared on his body and took root in the ground, planting itself in Wangshan Watchtower. I grew up in this place. If I am to meet my end, it should also be here. As Li Changxing said this, a divine aura radiated from his body. The roots of the ancient tree dug deep underground frenziedly. It took root deep in the lands of the entire Wangshan Watchtower. He wanted to become a part of Wangshan Watchtower. He had spent his life here. If he were to die, it should also be here. Li Changxing could not live long in the end. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 2077. Insignificant Renhuang. Chapter 2077. Insignificant Renhuang. The world only knew Li Changxing as the chief disciple of the Millet Emperor but didn't know much else about him. All they had was a vague impression that Li Changxing had been following the Millet Emperor for many years. In fact, Li Changxing had been with the Millet Emperor long before the founding of Wangshan Watchtower, but it was a time too long ago. It could be said that he had watched Wangshan Watchtower gradually gain its status and become worshipped by those in the Dongxiao continent and became the faith of the land, an absolute holy land. In the process, he had given much as he watched every disciple being admitted into Wangshan Watchtower. He was present every time Wangshan Watchtower recruited disciples. When Yi Futian and the others entered Wangshan Watchtower, he was there as well and witnessed the conflict between Yi Futian and the ancient royal family of Yan. Li Changxing spent his most formative years at Wangshan Watchtower. Now, Wangshan Watchtower had its name struck out and ran over by Renhuang from all over Dongxiao continent. This was why his killing spree. At this time, Li Changxing was fully prepared to die. He was sitting at the peak of Wangshan Watchtower, the divine wheel of the ancient tree rooted in this land. Its endless vines and branches bloomed throughout the entire Wangshan watchtower. However, higher above, a terrifying figure stood there, burning the world like a scorching sun. The area where he was burned with endless flames that came into being, appearing in every corner of Wangshan watchtower, burning the branches and leaves of the ancient tree. The palace lord of alchemy divine palace had been in seclusion for many years, and his cultivation had already entered the state of transformation. He reached the peak of Renhuang many years ago and had been pursuing the ultimate supremacy ever since. This time with the disturbance at Wangshan watchtower, he came to see any opportunity of the great path. He did not expect Li Changsheng to slaughter everyone indiscriminately. The deaths of the people from Alchemy Divine Palace aroused his great anger. Wangshan watchtower had been removed from the list. As someone who was about to die, Li Changsheng dared be so arrogant. He squeezed his hands, and immediately, the entire world around him was burning. Black flames turned everything into ashes. Once full of vitality, those ancient branches and leaves singed as soon as they were met with the flames, turning into ashes. His pupils were filled with terrible flame as he cast a glance at Li Changsheng. Suddenly, countless black flames fell from the void, like countless black meteorites. But Li Changsheng no longer cared. He sat there quietly as the ancient tree continued growing, its countless branches and leaves swayed like sharp blades, harvesting the lives of those who were within Wangshan watchtower. He closed his eyes and sat there quietly. It was as if all this had nothing to do with him anymore. When the flames invaded, a divine light screen formed around Li Changsheng. Nonetheless, it was being eroded by the flames little by little. At the same time, the cultivators from the ancient royal family of Yen also launched their attacks. Two powerful cultivators of the ninth realm summoned a divine dragon whose presence shielded the sky. Its claws were as hard as steel, full of boundless sharpness. They pierced toward the light screen and tore it apart, causing cracks to appear. But even so, they still weren't able to get to Li Changsheng for quite a long time. In the sky above, Yen Hanxing was full of murderous intent as he witnessed this. A loud dragon chant was heard, and the vast space of Wangshan watchtower trembled violently. The rest of the Renhuang from the ancient royal family of Yen also vocalized the dragon chant at the same time. The song of the young dragon resonated, shattering the void as the great path of terror frantically reverberated through the space. An incomparable divine dragon appeared around Yen Hanxing, sheltering this corner of the sky. This divine dragon swallowed up the great path between heaven and earth. Its massive body was flying high above the firmament, shaking the void. Its claws were glowing with terrible golden brilliance as if they were indestructible. The sight induced fear to all those who saw it. Li Changsheng, if you want to die, I will let you. As Yen Hanxing's voice faded, the giant dragon swooped down, tore through the space with its extremely sharp claws, and broke through the defense. A sound rang out, and the claws of terror penetrated Li Changsheng, putting a hole in him. In front of the huge claws, Li Changsheng appeared extremely small. It was as if he was being nailed there. Truly, it was a cruel sight to behold. He's dead. Everyone was trembling fiercely as they watched what had just transpired. Li Changsheng died in Wangshan watchtower. Those who Li Changsheng did not kill were thankful for their good fortune. In the few moments since Li Changsheng had set foot onto Wangshan watchtower, many Renhuang in the watchtower had perished. Their unceremonious deaths had frightened the others. Now, Li Changsheng was finally dead. Blood drops fell on the land upon which Wangshan watchtower stood, and Li Changsheng no longer felt any pain. However, even in death, he kept his watch over this land. Wangshan watchtower would always exist in this world. Countless divine lights splashed everywhere, dazzled many. They saw countless green light rays fly out of the pierced body, blending into the world, into the ancient tree, into those endless leafy branches. It seemed that Li Changsheng had integrated his spiritual soul into this land, taken root, and existed alongside the Wangshan watchtower. He's dead. His soul and spirit have dispersed. When everyone saw this, they retracted their aura. Yen Hanxing, the palace lord of Alchemy Divine Palace, and the other Renhuang looked indifferently at the corpse below. Zhong Chan was already killed in the previous battle, and now the chief disciple of the Millet Emperor was also dead, leaving only Yi Futian and the Millet Emperor himself. The Millet Emperor was not their responsibility, only the likes of the chief could handle him. Right now, as long as they could find Yi Futian and kill him, it would be considered the end of Wangshan Watchtower. As for the others, they didn't care much. "Let's go," Yan Hanxing said, "no need to stay here any longer. Burn Wangshan Watchtower to the ground." The chief had already ordered the name of Wangshan Watchtower to be struck out from Donghua domain. From now on, there would be no more Wangshan Watchtower. He turned around and was about to leave. However, at this moment, a light suddenly lit up on a blanket of emerald green branches and leaves on the ground. It was as if there was a strange movement. No one noticed this, but after that, lights lit up the branches and leaves in this space as the branches and leaves were swaying, turning emerald green. A vigorous vitality emerged, allowing this almost withered ancient tree to suddenly rise from the ground, growing wildly. Countless spots of light appeared between heaven and the earth, full of vitality. It was as if it existed everywhere. At this moment, the whole world was filled with light. What's happening? The crowd felt that something was amiss. The Palace Lord of Alchemy Divine Palace immediately released a terrifying divine flame to destroy everything. However, the divine fire of the Great Path fell on the branches and leaves as those spots of light, but failed to destroy them. The branches and leaves were still swaying and more light spots now lit up. A light turned into ancient branches and leaves. As the tree grew madly, getting taller, it was as if it was about to pierce through the sky. That's not right. Yan Hanxing seemed to sense that something was wrong. He released his divine consciousness and touched his brow chakra with his finger. Suddenly, a terrible divine light shot out from his eyes, looking at this space like a sharp sword. At this moment, he no longer saw an infinite spot of light but countless elusive figures. And every single figure looked like Li Changxing, everywhere at once. Impossible! Yan Hanxing's face changed to one of horror, and his heart throbbed. He had killed Li Changxing with his own hands, and he saw Li Changxing perish here with his own eyes. What was this that he sees before him? This was impossible. At this moment, many things went through in Yan Hanxing's mind, and suddenly a thought came into his head. Was this the becoming? As the crown prince of the ancient royal family of Yan, he knew more about the unknown realm than others. Because he knew, hence the fear. Did he force a top-level existence to come into being? Boom! Yan Hanxing was no fool. As soon as the thought crossed his mind, he made a quick decision and immediately disappeared. In an instant, he had already fled into the distance. He shouted at the same time, "Retreat!" Everyone saw that Yan Hanxing had disappeared immediately without even realizing what had happened. They only heard the order to retreat. They looked at the place where Yan Hanxing was and saw that he had disappeared and could not be seen even from a distance. He had already moved away from Wangshan Watchtower and left with incredible speed. Did he sense something had happened? Go! Although the rest did not understand what had happened, upon Yan Hanxing's order to retreat, they did not hesitate. At this moment, the infinite divine light from heaven and the earth fell right on top of that ancient tree. Suddenly, the towering ancient tree pierced the sky, and its endless branches and leaves enveloped mountains and rivers. At this moment, one of the branches was swiping in one direction. Some Renhuang intending on leaving in that direction were stopped. He had maintained the forward motion, but in the next moment, his body was split in two. He had died a horrid death on the spot. In this instant, all the Renhuang felt a bitter coldness deep inside their bones. They didn't even have the chance to realize what was happening before some Renhuang were slaughtered. Buzz! Above the divine tree, abundant branches and leaves swayed as the branches moved toward the Renhuang toward Wangshan Watchtower. They passed through the void before those people realized what was happening and watched these leafy branches passing through them. Immediately, a shower of blood fell from the void. Get out of here! Everyone's expression changed to one in shock as they fled frantically. However, the ancient tree had reached up all the way to the heavens, filled the sky with its presence, and its shade shrouded this vast space. A clattering sound came out as countless branches and leaves fell from the sky, and the sound of slaughter seemed to go on forever. At this moment, Wangshan Watchtower turned into a world of blood as each and every one of the powerful Renhuang was killed off like ants. Even though he was the palace lord of Alchemy Divine Palace and the flame upon his body was so fierce that it could set the mountains and the oceans on fire, the moment when the branches and leaves came down, the flame was put out. Its defense of the great path was as fragile as paper and could not withstand a single blow. The branches and leaves passed through his body and instantly solidified his body in the void. His face was full of horror and disbelief as he fixed his eyes on the divine tree. "The becoming," he spat. As his soul turned to dust, he was obliterated without any power to fight back. Outside of Wangshan Watchtower, there were some cultivators, even some at the Renhuang level, who would never be able to forget what they saw at this moment. The divine tree penetrated through heaven, and as the branches and leaves slammed down, these Renhuang were as insignificant as ants. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. The battle at Wangshan Watchtower once again shocked the Donghua domain. After everyone from all the top forces on the main continents learned of the news, it spread to the other continents in Donghua domain and became a legend. The battle at Wangshan Watchtower once again shocked the Donghua domain. After everyone from all the top forces on the main continents learned of the news, it spread to the other continents in Donghua domain and became a legend. On the day that the chief ordered the name of Wangshan Watchtower to be struck from Donghua domain, Wangshan Watchtower was pillaged by all the participating Renhuang. At the time, Wangshan Watchtower's chief disciple, Li Chongxing, ascended to the top of the watchtower, intending to go down with it. He had given his spiritual soul to every inch of the watchtower when he was besieged by everyone as he shed his blood. However, he came back from death miraculously and was resurrected. Li Chongxing's spiritual soul merged into Wangshan Watchtower, and the becoming made his rebirth possible. He cut down those Renhuang and washed Wangshan Watchtower with their blood. Li Chongxing returned and broke through the shackles in cultivation, proving the supremacy of the way. Yan Hanxing was the only one who managed to escape because of his premonition. After that, Wangshan Watchtower was sealed off as everyone was being slaughtered, including the palace lord of Alchemy Divine Palace. Wangshan Watchtower was destroyed, and Zongchan was killed. No one expected that this situation would force another powerful figure to come into being. After Li Chongxing's breakthrough and departure from Wangshan Watchtower, some people speculated that he searched the Millet Emperor. Before, because Li Chongxing could not see any hope of revenge, he waged his life in the final confrontation. It was different now. The person he was today would be able to get his revenge. He and the Millet Emperor would be enough to contend against the ancient royal family of Yan and Lingxiao Palace. Under such circumstances, Li Chongxing no longer needed to seek death as the last resort but could focus on avenging Zongchan and those dead disciples of Wangshan Watchtower. The Millet Emperor was still alive, and now there was Li Chongxing. Perhaps, from now on, no one would dare to set foot on Wangshan Watchtower carelessly, even if it remained in ruins. However, anyone who wanted to enter Wangshan Watchtower must consider the consequences. Everything seemed to be different now. This turmoil seemed far from over, but no one was arguing about who was right or who was wrong anymore. After, it didn't matter. What mattered the most now was how the turmoil would evolve in the future. Its ripple effects were yet to be seen. It was already days later when Yi Futian learned of the news. He was cultivating when he heard it in Xia Qingyuan's transmission. He had been worried about Li Chongxing, and now he could finally breathe a sigh of relief. Yang Wuqi came to see Yi Futian, and when he saw that Yi Futian had stopped cultivating, he looked relieved. He said with a smile, "It seems that you already knew." Yi Futian nodded. Never expected that the chief disciple of the Millet Emperor would have this opportunity. After this breakthrough, it will not be easy for the domain chief's manor and the Yen kingdom to deal with him, Yang Wuqi said. After the breakthrough, he had reached another level, and another world had opened up. Even though Li Chongxing, who had just had the breakthrough, was not yet strong enough to take on those figureheads of the opposition. The divine prefecture was a massive territory, and Li Changsheng could be anywhere. He could leave Donghua domain, and it would not be easy to track him and take him out. Yi Futian nodded. He was also happy for Li Changsheng, but when he thought of Zhong Chan, his mood darkened again. He whispered, "If brother Zhong Chan is still there, Wangshan Watchtower might produce 3 giants in the future." If Zhong Chan was still around, Li Changsheng might not have this great opportunity. Yang Wuqi said, "Perhaps this is what they meant by, what goes up must come down. Don't think too much about it. You have to look forward, and when you reach the 9th realm one day, it won't be a problem to explore the possibility to reinstate Wangshan Watchtower." Yi Futian didn't say much. "Some of my friends may be here in a few days, and I will have to rely on your hospitality. I will do my best." Yang Wuqi nodded. "Thank you." Yi Futian bowed slightly. Goddess Donglai and Xia Qingyuan were already on their way. After Goddess Donglai and the others returned to Eastern Deity Island, they divided all the island resources to the cultivators. They dismissed them, letting them go back to where they belonged. Although principalities like the domain chief's manor wouldn't care much about Eastern Deity Island and wouldn't even bother to attack it, they still had to guard against the ancient royal family of Yen to avoid involving the others. Therefore, Goddess Donglai decided to dissolve Eastern Deity Island. Even though she was very reluctant, it had to be done to avoid the risks. Of course, Eastern Deity Island still existed, guarded by some who volunteered to stay behind on Penglai Deity Island. Goddess Donglai hung on to the hope that she may return there one day. After disbanding Eastern Deity Island, Goddess Donglai took a few people and started heading towards the Divine Ocean continent. On this day, when they crossed the Divine Ocean, they saw a huge island in front of them that resembled a divine turtle. "We are here," said the Alchemy Emperor. He was also following along with Goddess Donglai. The Millet Emperor and Supreme Being Donglai were his benefactors. Now they had both fallen victim to unfortunate events, and it was revealed that it had been the doing of Chief Ning. Chapter 2079, Divine Prefecture Calendar Year 10058. Chapter 2079, Divine Prefecture Calendar Year 10058 at Turtle Deity Island, in the cultivation court at the back of the mountain. A white-haired figure was sitting cross-legged. It was Yi Futian. At this time, there was a breathtaking scene in Yi Futian's life palace. In front of him, a divine heart floated in the air. Around the divine heart, a boundless and massive illusory figure appeared. It was the shadow of a peacock demon god. Inside the world of the life palace, there was a strange vision of heaven and earth. The wings of the peacock demon god spread out, sheltering the boundless void, blocking out the sun. There were jewels bedecking its radiant divine wings, and like mirrors, they reflected the divine glory that would cover a boundless space. Every place illuminated by the divine light seemed to be the realm that belonged to the peacock demon god. That divine heart madly gobbled up the power of the great path between heaven and earth, and the currents of the great path circulated to create this vision. Yi Futian had a feeling that the peacock demon god was supposed to have existed in this world. His power and the world of Yi Futian's life palace were one and the same. This also reminded Yi Futian of when he experienced his own becoming. He was destined to have the perfect great path. Inside this extremely splendid realm of the gods, Yi Futian could feel an ancient aura which he perceived vaguely. In this realm of the gods, any areas illuminated by the gems on the wings of the peacock demon god would be shattered and destroyed. Just as when they were in the secret zone, wherever the divine light reached, everything was destroyed, the great path collapsed, the secret zone pulverized, and Renhuang perished. Yi Futian opened his eyes and stared at the crystal-like heart of the demon god. This thing was the heart of the demon god, a veritable divine item, which was now one with his own spiritual soul. What would happen if he were to refine it? When his thought turned to this, countless branches and leaves danced on the ancient tree of the world as they swept toward the heart of the demon god, covering it. They then entangled and swallowed it within the ancient tree of the world, as the ancient branches and leaves absorbed its power, turning it into nourishment to incorporate it into the spiritual soul. At this time, in the outside world, there were also infinite branches and leaves spreading out. Many ancient branches and leaves appeared upon Yi Futian, who was sitting there. There were roots underneath his feet, taking hold inside the earth. It was as if his entire person had turned into an ancient tree. Gradually, Yi Futian fell into a fantastical realm. In that wondrous mood, he seemed to transform into a divine tree, with those ancient branches and leaves transformed as parts of his body, as his breath of life became extremely robust. The sound of heartbeats was loud. In Great Yan ancient royal family, Emperor Yan had 7 heirs. Yan Dongyang was killed by Yi Futian, leaving 4 other princes. In Great Yan ancient royal family, Emperor Yan had 7 heirs. Yan Dongyang was killed by Yi Futian, leaving 4 other princes. This was the alliance marriage of Emperor Yan's second son, Yan Zhu. Yan Zhu was a 7th-tier Renhuang and was very powerful. However, when he became a middle-level Renhuang, his great path became flawed. His talent was no match for Yan Dongyang. Hence, his standing in Great Yan ancient royal family was not as high as his younger brother, Yan Dongyang. However, the crown prince of Great Yan ancient royal family, Yan Hanqing, already had a path companion, and Yan Dongyang was killed. Yan Zhu was the most suitable candidate for this alliance marriage. Hence, the Great Yan ancient royal family chose him to marry a princess of Lingxiao Palace. In reality, this was an alliance between the 2 top forces. That way, the 2 major forces would be even more powerful in the Donghua domain. Of course, some giant-level forces were speculating whether domain chief's manor was pulling strings behind the scenes. After all, during the Donghua banquet, they noticed that Lingxiao Palace, which was also a force in the Donghua heavens, only followed the heels of domain chief's manor. The attitude that Lingxiao Palace Lord displayed towards Chief Ning Yuan was abnormal. After all, Lingxiao Palace and domain chief's manor were from the same continent. So, the crowd could tell. Now, Lingxiao Palace and Great Yan ancient royal family were allying and becoming an extremely powerful force. Their might was frightening. In addition, they might also have the backing of domain chief's manor behind them. This alliance would put greater pressure on the other giant-level forces. The alliance marriage between the 2 giant-level forces sent ripples throughout the Donghua domain. The news spread to the main continent of the domain and even beyond to other continents. Rumor has it that Great Yan ancient royal family would cross half the Donghua domain to bring back the princess of Lingxiao Palace. They would not utilize a teleportation matrix, instead opting to travel across many continents. They wanted the world to know of this event and attract worldwide attention. After news of this got out, many people were excited. They wanted to witness this grand event. Great Yan ancient royal family did this to make this alliance marriage glorious and to enjoy the attention. At the same time, this sent out a message to the rest of the world that they took this alliance marriage seriously. Some people estimated that if Great Yan ancient royal family departed from the south region of the Donghua domain and headed over to the Donghua heavens in the center of the domain, they would need to cross thousands of continents, big and small. One could imagine how grand an event this would be. Great Yan ancient royal family even estimated the time they would take. They would depart a month in advance and head over to the Donghua heavens according to a schedule. They would arrive at the Donghua heavens a month later to marry the princess of Lingxiao Palace. On this day, in the main city of a small continent in the south region, the city was alive with activity. In a large tavern, guests were toasting each other, and it was very lively. They were busy discussing various events of the day. Did all of you know that Great Yan ancient royal family and Lingxiao Palace are having an alliance marriage? Someone said. I heard some news of this. These giant-level forces at the peak and the ancient royal family are too high above us. Normally, we would not care much about them. However, this time, the commotion they caused is too huge. It is hard not to know about it, said someone with a smile. The continent they were on was similar to the continent that Yi Futian arrived when he first reached the Divine Prefecture. It didn't even have a name. To them, the top forces were indeed far beyond their reach, too far above them. Those were all forces and figures of legends. They could only hear of such things from the mouths of others. It is an alliance marriage between 2 forces at the peak. To display their sincerity, The Great Yen ancient royal family made a spectacle of the event. It also shows that they are taking this alliance marriage seriously. I wonder whether they will pass through the continents where we are. I would like to see how powerful the lineup that Great Yen ancient royal family sent for the wedding is. The Great Yen ancient royal family probably won't bother with a nameless continent like ours, someone said. If all of you wish to see the procession, there is a continent that Great Yen ancient royal family will certainly pass through. Many people nodded with smiles on their faces. They seemed to know which continent the person was referring to. It is the Tianqi continent, right? Suggested someone. That's right. The Tianqi continent is the main continent among our group of continents. It overshadows many continents around here. Since Great Yen ancient royal family wants to make their event as grand as possible, a look at the map will tell you that Great Yen ancient royal family will pass straight through the Tianqi continent on their way to the Donghua heavens. They would not go around it, said the person who had spoken with a smile. The crowd around him nodded their heads. His analysis was spot on. Since Great Yen ancient royal family wanted to head over to the wedding grandly, they should be passing through the Tianqi continent. The lineup of Great Yen ancient royal family is powerful, so they will certainly be extremely fast. Even if we manage to see them, it will be over in the blink of an eye. Why do we need to trouble ourselves for so little? Someone said with a hearty laugh. Chapter 2081. Intercept? Chapter 2081. Intercept. The Tianqi continent was very prosperous. It was similar to the Penglai continent, possessing many ninth-tier renowangs. It was considered the main continent in the surrounding region. These past few days, the Tianqi continent seemed exceptionally lively. Many people on the continent suspected that Great Yen ancient royal family would pass by here on their way to the wedding in the Donghua heavens. For most people, they had never seen the cultivators from these giant level forces of the legend before. Moreover, the lineup for the wedding procession this time would certainly be very powerful. Many people were waiting in anticipation. If the Great Yen ancient royal family passed through the Tianqi continent, they would pass through Crimson City in the center. Hence, countless cultivators rushed over to Crimson City, intending to catch a glimpse of the cultivators from the giant level force. Of course, many people had no interest in joining in the fun. Some scoffed at the idea. However, many top forces in Crimson City were standing ready, preparing to show themselves when the other party passed through the city. If they had the chance to come in contact with such powers, it would definitely be beneficial for them. On this day, on the outskirts of the Tianqi continent, the cries of dragons suddenly could be heard. This caused countless people to tremble. They frantically looked up far into the distance. Purple, golden divine light shot across the sky. Powerful, gigantic divine dragons streamed across the sky. At the very front were 9 dragons, all of them upper-level demon emperors. They were pulling a luxurious chariot. On the divine dragons stood cultivators, all of them renowangs. They were adorned in dragon armor and appeared extremely majestic. They gave off a solemn vibe. There were similarly dragons to the left, right as well as behind the chariot. The lineup was terrifying. They roared as they passed by in the sky above. Everywhere they went, the cries of dragons filled the skies, seemingly reminding the people below that they were passing by. Many demonic beasts down below bowed down. The cultivators were also trembling in awe. Many of them even wanted to bow their heads. They had never seen such a terrifying procession. An upper-level Renhuang was a top cultivator in the eyes of these ordinary folk. However, right now, in the heavens above, 9 purple gold dragons were pulling a chariot across the sky. The procession of the Great Yen ancient royal family sped across high in the sky. In an instant, they had vanished far off into the distance, disappearing from view. They were extremely fast. Yet, the awe-inspiring scene remained in the minds of the crowd for a very long time. This majestic scene was especially unforgettable for the young cultivators. So this was a superpower. A mere wedding procession was already so terrifying. When he entered the secret zone, he activated the ruin in the secret zone and also killed Yen Dongyang, Ling He, and a few 8th-tier cultivators. His records in battle were too glorious. On top of these impressive records, There were also rumors from when Yi Futian stood before the divine mirror of heavenly wheels in Donghua Academy. Even though Yi Futian was wanted, after the storm of incidents, there were many stories about Yi Futian. As time went on, people had gradually forgotten about him. Now that he had appeared again, these people instantly recalled his doings back then. They wanted to see how incredible this person was and whether the rumors were true or not. Some people considered these rumors to be exaggerated due to the commotion back then. He might have done many astonishing things, but they must certainly have been blown out of proportion. It was natural for such things to happen. Such was the way of the world. However, merely based on his appearance and temperament, he was indeed extraordinary. Yi Futian's figure floated in the air in the center of the battlefield. He floated towards the chariot drawn by the 9 divine dragons. Frightening divine light circled his entire body. An astonishing storm whipped up around him. In the skies above, a yin-yang diagram appeared. The terrifying yin-yang diagram kept expanding as it rotated in the sky. Frightening divine halos descended like lightning. The light that descended from the yin-yang diagram landed on the figure of a 7th-tier Renhuang. The Renhuang was instantly pierced through by the divine light. His body actually disintegrated after that, turning to dust which scattered to the winds. Around the chariot, Renhuangs charged up into the sky one after another. Yet, the divine light of the yin-yang diagram seemed endless, raining down constantly like a divine tribulation of the great path. Puffing sounds could be heard non-stop. Renhuangs beneath the 8th tier were immediately vaporized. They could not withstand the killing blows of the yin-yang diagram. The people down below also saw a 7th-tier divine dragon try to swallow Yi Futian. However, divine halos rained down from the yin-yang diagram. The gigantic figure of the divine dragon was actually pierced through immediately. It then disintegrated bit by bit and turned to dust. A miserable roar came from the sky. As Yi Futian stood there, he seemed undefeatable. So powerful. Many people felt their hearts stir when they saw this majestic scene. One could only truly know a person's ability by witnessing it for themselves. Listening to rumors was misleading. Having personally witnessed Yi Futian standing there, they actually believed that he was invincible. At that moment, an even more terrifying dragon roar filled the skies. The crowd looked over in that direction. An 8th-tier dragon emperor charged up into the skies, his 10,000-foot-long figure swaying as he did so. A frightening storm was swept up. It fell to the ground below and appeared extremely pathetic. Divine light circled the white-haired Renhuang. He appeared immaculate and still looked otherworldly. Although he penetrated through the figure of the Dragon Emperor, he seemed not to be stained by any filth. The divine light had blocked off everything. So powerful! The cultivators who were observing the battle felt their hearts tremble violently. An 8th-tier Dragon Emperor was killed in a single blow. That spear strike appeared simplistic, but it was astounding. It was terrifying, piercing straight through the figure of the 8th-tier Dragon Emperor. They also heard rumors that Yi Futian possessed the will of the Emperor. If he activated it, his combat ability would be even more powerful. However, right now, even though he had not done so, it was still enough to kill a Dragon Emperor in a single blow. One could imagine how frightening Yi Futian was. From the looks of it, the rumors regarding Yi Futian were not only true, and they could even be said to have failed to capture the true might of Yi Futian. Only by witnessing it firsthand could they know how powerful he actually was. The other demon emperors roared furiously at Yi Futian. Their roars shook the skies. Yi Futian swept a glance at them. He tilted his long spear as he stood alone high in the sky. The shadow of the peacock spread its wings. Divine light immediately shot out from the ocelli on its divine wings. The light was like terrifying lightning. The divine phenomenon appeared in the sky above. The divine lights that shot out were like peacocks that charged towards the demon emperors. Rumble! The powerful 7th-tier dragons were immediately torn to shreds. Blood splattered everywhere as divine light penetrated straight through them and caused their bodies to disintegrate. They let out painful roars that seemed to be full of dissatisfaction. Yi Futian stepped forward in the sky like a god of judgment. Everywhere he passed, the dragon shrieked. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible.